Hi, this is Lei here. I'm gonna teach you a little bit of the basics around the tech room. I hope this tutorial helps whoever is watching this get comfortable with the Flex Kit. For clarity, this is just me teaching the basics and tips. You will still need to practice tech on your own. Now that I went over that, let's get started. This is what you would call the Flex Kit, and this is what you will be using to do lights. Over on the wall, there are a few things that you can read over to become familiar with the terms. Okay, now back to the Flex Kit. To open the system, all you need to do is click on the screen, and you will be met with the main menu. Here is where you will find 4 options on the top of your screen: Main, Branch, Editors, and Extras. For this tutorial, we will only be using the Main and Extras tab. Once you click on the Main button, there will be a list of options to choose from. First, we will be starting with Par, which is the main lights. Once you click on Par, there will be a lot of buttons. This may be overwhelming at first, but don't worry because it's not as difficult as you may think. If you look over to the left of the screen, there will be a few buttons that say Snap, Fade, O, X, Hold, Bump, and to A, B buttons. The O, X button is basically just to turn the Par light on. And if you click the Hold button, the Par lights will turn off. Beside the Hold button, there are 2 A, B buttons. These basically do the same thing except they do not stay on. The top one you can hold down, and it will only do half of the Par lights. And the bottom is the same except you cannot hold it down. I typically do not use these 2 buttons when touching. And the Bump button does the same as the O, X button. Now onto the Fade and Snap button. As you can see, when I turn on the lights, they snap on. While if I put the Fade button, the lights will fade on. This is a feature on all the light options. Next up, we have the middle buttons, which change the style of the lights. I won't teach you every one of them, but you can play around with them and see what each of them do in a private server. Sometimes when you turn a specific one on like Rand and then take it off, it will turn the lights off. So just make sure you click Bump or O, X again to turn them back on. Down in the right corner, there are 2 other buttons that I use. This is Mode and Kill. If you click the Mode button, it will set it to F, which turns off the beam part of the lights. And then lastly, the Kill button, which will kill the Par light completely. It will even remove the selected style buttons if you have them selected. Next up is the Branch, which is represented with the B button. This will take you to the color wheel and the settings of the lights. You can mess around with the colors and figure out what you like for certain scenes, or even base the colors off of the actual musical. On the side of the color wheel, you can see the color selected and the scale for how light or dark you want your color to be. There is a button that will say Snap, and if you click on it, it will switch to Fade. This will allow the colors to fade into the next one you set. If you click on it again, it will be set to Pulse, which basically will keep the color you had it set on. But when you change the color, it will just flash the chosen color instead of changing it. And to change it back to Snap or Flash, you just keep clicking it until you get the setting you want. Now, if you scroll down, there are also preset colors, where you can have 2 different colors at once. I love using these when I can because they're so pretty. This specific one is my personal favorite. On the other side are the settings. I won't get too in-depth as to what they do, but I can explain what the dim option does. Sliding it up will increase the speed of which your style selected moves, and sliding it down will decrease the speed as shown in the video. This can be used if you want to change the style for intense or less intense scenes. That is all for the Par section of the video. Now onto the Line section. The Line button can be found right beside Par. The layout is typically the same with all the same buttons as Par, just with different styles. Since there's not much more to teach about Line, I encourage you to experiment with the different styles and find your own way of doing lights. I may not have mentioned it before, but you can click the W on the top of the color wheel to set the color back to white. Since you can't really see what light turns on from the booth, I'll show you here. Sorry for the slight frame rate drop. The Line lights make my game lag, which is also why I usually only have Line on during Beautiful or DGS. But line basically just outlines the front of the stage and the back wall, hence the name line. Next up is profile, which can be a really fun addition to lights. It can be located at the top of the list when you first open the main menu. Again, the layout is the same, but profile has a few more buttons added to it. If you haven't noticed already, there are 2 rows of the X button. The first one is just a normal version of the light, and the second one is a more flared kind of light. I usually use the first one more, but if I'm feeling a little fancy, I use the flared one, or even both at the same time. Down at the bottom, there are 2 buttons that say flush and blind. Both do exactly what their name is. Flush makes the profile spread out or flush out, while blind literally just blinds the audience. Which is why I usually only use the flush button. If you ever do use the blind button or the profile somehow gets stuck above the stage, then you go over to the bottom left corner where it says tilt and reset. Over here you can reset the tilt of the lights back to its original spot. Or if you want to change the tilt a little, you can just click the tilt button. All this does is just move the light position up a little every time you click it. And of course, you can click reset again to get it back to its original position. Just like par and line, profile has many different styles you can mess around with. It is greatly encouraged to be creative with your lights, so don't be afraid to spice things up. Just like par, profile also has the mode button to get rid of the beam of the light. I usually use this when it's just a casual dialogue scene. And of course, to turn the beam back on, just click the mode again to set it to T. Next up is the branch for profile. It is basically the same as par and line, just with a few different settings that you can mess around with. From time to time, I like to mess around with the presets and settings to see what I like and what would fit certain scenes. Next is display. It can be found all the way at the bottom of the list. This section will be quick, as the layout is the same as all the other lights. As you can see, there are no extra buttons and has almost the same layout as line. The display lights are basically just the windows on stage. I usually only change the color and keep it on podium for most of the show. But like I said, you can mess around and see what you prefer. And that's really all there is to display. Now on to Spotlight. This is my favorite part of tech personally. You should be able to see it, as it is the only option available on these screens besides pyrotechnics. Once you click on it, you will be met with a slightly different layout than the main lights, but fear not, the basics are still the same. Above the 6 buttons in the middle, there is a faint button that says name. You are going to click on this. After clicking on it, a list of names will come up. When selecting who to put the spotlight on, you can look over at the roll board to see who is playing what character. Right now it is only me and my friend Jason, who will be on stage to help demonstrate the spotlight. To select the person, click on their name and then click continue to set it. There are a few different options of what setting to put the spotlight on. But first, let me turn the light on. It's the same as turning on and off main lights. On the bottom there are 2 buttons, open and close. Open will open up the spotlight more, while close will make the spotlight close more. In Spotlight, we see the mode button again. This does the same thing that it does in the main lights. I prefer to set the spotlight on T so that the beam isn't covering anyone else. And again, the branch for Spotlight is the same as the main lights. I don't use the presets for Spotlight since the different colors won't show. The setting fade can change the time it takes to fade into the next color. The higher it is set, the faster it will fade, and the lower it is set, the slower it will fade. Now back to the main screen. I will show you the different settings of Spotlight, which are these 6 buttons below name. The player button sets it to follow the player. The head button sets it to follow the player's head. And the ran button sets the spotlight on a random player. Mouse sets the spotlight to follow your mouse while holding M1 down, but to make it work you need to be on stage and out of the booth. It is a little wonky, so I don't use this setting. The torso button sets the spotlight to follow the player's torso. And last but not least, the freeze button. This makes the spotlight freeze in place and not follow the selected player. That is all for spotlight. I typically only ever use the player setting. Now onto the front buttons and set buttons. These are fairly easy to learn. The three buttons that say Act 1, Act 2, and intermission is what starts the act and music. Be careful when pressing these and always make sure the cast is ready. Keep in mind that intermission is 8 minutes long and you will not be able to skip it once it is played. The red buttons are what takes the set off. So when starting the show, make sure to turn the house lights off and open the curtains. And of course, the green buttons mean putting the set on. Now over on the back wall of the booth, you will find the set buttons. It may be confusing at first, but I will help explain what to do. For the first part of Beautiful, you will not need to open these until the heathers are being introduced. When that time comes, you click all three of the red buttons for this song. This will open the stairs and back wall so that the heathers can walk through. Once Beautiful is over, make sure you close the back wall. Now for Candy Store and Fight For Me, the set doesn't change. So no need to worrying about set until after the scene with Kurt and Ram is over. During Kurt and Ram's scene after Fight For Me, you are going to click the two outside buttons and the green button for Sky. The cast will open the lockers to reveal the backyard set, so you will not need to worry about that. During the Candy Store reprise, you can take off Sky and go ahead and put the Freeze Your Brain set on. The set will remain the same until JD starts humming after Freeze Your Brain. That is when you will take 5 off and put the Big Fun set on. This set will remain the same until after Heather Chandler says, "Where's the keg?" After that line, you can take the Big Fun set off and put the Dead Girl Walking set on. This set will stay on until after Veronica says, "By the way, you were my first." That is when you will take the DGW set off and put all of the HC room set on. HC's room will stay on until she says, "Myriad, nice." That is when you will take off her room set and put on the Me Inside of Me set, which is the yellow button named TMIOM. Once that song is done, there will be a scene with Miss Fleming on the balcony. That is when you would put on JD's house set. This set will stay on until after Veronica says, "Dear Diary." After that, you will leave set alone until after the call with Heather McNamara. Once the call is done, you put the "You're Welcome" set on. Once this song is over, Veronica will be talking to her diary. This is when you will take the YW set off and put the school set on. This set will stay on for a while for Never Shut Up Again, and even through the beginning of Our Love Is God. After Veronica and JD do the little pose with their guns, that is when you will take the school set off and put the graveyard set on. This set will stay on for the rest of the song. There will be a sound at the end of the scene, and that is when you will put the curtain back on and click the intermission button. During that scene, you can also add more fog by going to Pyrotechnics and clicking on the haze button. I also use this for the scene where the heathers are being introduced. It should add more fog, and to turn this off, all you need to do is click the hold button next to the haze button. Now you've finished Act 1. Congratulations! Next up is Act 2, but before that we need to start intermission. Once you have started intermission, you can go ahead and set up for Act 2 by turning off fog and putting all of the funeral set on. Once intermission is over, you can turn off house lights and start Act 2 after making sure everyone is ready. And of course, you will need to open the curtain once it starts. The funeral set will stay on until MGDS is over. Once it finished, you take all of the funeral set off and leave it as is for 17. After 17, there will be a scene with HC and V. That's when you will click the two open buttons, which will move the stairs in place for Shine a Light. Once Miss Fleming comes on and says, "Where's the banner?" you put the two SAL set on. This will stay on until the cell reprise. During the reprise, you can take the two cell set back off. Once the cute scene with V and Heather McNamara is over, you will have the TV set on to show that V is at JD's house now. This set will remain on for the rest of the scene, and I say no. After I say no, there will be a pep rally with the cheerleaders on stage. That is when you will take the TV off and prep the set for the scene with JD and Duke. Once HD says nobody cares about Martha Dump Truck, you put the sky set on for kindergarten boyfriend. Don't forget this. People often forget to put the sky set on. After kindergarten boyfriend is over, you will take the sky off while it transitions to another scene with HM, Yi, HD, and HC. They will talk for a bit until HD reveals what Martha did, and then that's when your girl will start. Once your girl starts, you will then put the window on and click the open button. After JD reads the note with the ensemble, that is when you will also put on V's death set. This set will stay on until after Veronica's mom asks where she went after discovering her. Once V comes back onto the balcony to do her little speech thing, that is when you will take off the window and press every red button for the dead girl walking reprise. The set will remain the same for the rest of the show, so no need to worry for a while. The only thing left now for set is Martha's scooter. When V says, "Martha, are you free tonight?" During the 17 reprise, that is when you will do Martha's scooter. This is a bit different from the other set as you will have to manually drive the scooter basically. All you need to do is follow the number order of the set provided. Take your time with pressing the buttons to try and not be too ahead of the song. Here is how it will look when putting it on. And then this is the final position. Make sure you don't accidentally press the off button for her scooter. Yay, you've completely finished Act 2 now. Once the song ends, make sure you close the curtains, turn house lights on, and click the off button for Martha's scooter to set the stage for the bows. When the applaud ends and music starts up again, you can open the curtain for the cast's bows. And after all the bows, when Veronica starts to count down, you can go to Pyrotechnics and click on the confetti button like you would for haze. It will take a bit for it to come out. That's why I recommend clicking it during her countdown to get the timing right. Woohoo, you made it to the end of my tutorial. I really hope this has helped you get comfortable with the mechanics of the lights and set. Thank you for watching. This is Lei signing out.